What do you do when at age 53, your husband's job evaporates? You've been a career stay at home mom, and security as you've known it is gone. What do you do then? How do you reinvent? What pivots do you need to make? It's a conundrum. My name is Susan Smith, and I am a machine quilter by passion. But now I also proudly wear the title of entrepreneur and online business creator. And I want to tell you a little of my story because I think that it might ring some bells. You may be sitting there with maybe a similar story, maybe a job that has just evaporated from underneath you, but maybe something a little different, like looking at retirement, but wanting to have something else in place that you love doing. Or maybe it's you're stuck in a job that you absolutely hate and you want to do something else, but don't know how to get from here to there. My story has some of all of those elements. And so I'm going to walk you through it a little bit, not because I think it's so remarkable, but because I think there are illustrative points in it that may help you if you're running up against some of these same problems that I did and trying to make similar pivots and decisions. So see if the things that I'm sharing resonate with you. I would love if, as I go, if it is resonating, if you would pop that into the comments, or if you have questions about my story too, if you would pop that into the comments below. I'd love to hear them and open up a conversation. Okay, let me set the scene. I have been a quilt maker and a crafter, one way and another, pretty much all my life. And in my 40s, so about 10 years ago, I started getting into machine quilting and specifically long arm quilting, which just means I use an industrial machine that has a long arm. It's like a sewing machine, but with that long arm, and you can move it freely over the fabric. And it's kind of a, quilting, machine quilting on steroids, right? And so I got into that about 10 years ago and absolutely fell in love. So this is kind of foundational to steps that would happen in the future. Because I found this thing that I loved, it became really a passion for me. And at this point in my life, I had been a stay at home and homeschooling mom. I didn't have any post secondary education, and staying at home, being a mom, raising our family was what I did. And so when I found this passion was when our children were older. Some were already out of high school, some were still in high school, but were going to public school. So I had a little more time on my hands. So I dove into this hobby of long arm quilting really with both feet. And it became more than a hobby. I did develop that into a business, and I was quilting for hire. In other words, taking other people's sewn and pretty quilt tops, putting the layers together, stitching them together. So I was doing that, and I would say it was a hobby that certainly paid for itself. Buying the machine was repaid with this hobby too. Over 4 or 5 years, it was something like $15,000 to $20,000 a year, which is not insignificant for a hobby. It was a wonderful little addition, injection into our family's coffers. Fast forward a few years, and the spring that we all know and remember, the pandemic spring, arrives. And my husband's job evaporated in a nanosecond, really. And I know that some of you experienced that too, so I don't have to describe to you that feeling of the bottom of your world dropping out. What are we going to do now? I still have my hobby. I love doing it, but that isn't going to support us, right? That certainly is not going to set us up for long term or retirement or anything that we want to be doing 20 years from now. What are we going to do? So here's the situation then. My husband and I both were high school education. We did not have any letters after our name. We did not have any particular degrees or massive levels of experience. My husband was a lifelong entrepreneur, so we had done a number of things at this point. So really no job qualifications, nothing that qualifies us for a great job. And of course, many are scrambling for jobs at that point. So really unemployable. And who is going to look at my resume, been at home for the last 20 years, been raising toddlers, and teaching sixth graders, who's going to hire based on that? So that was big problem number one. What am I going to do? What qualifications or skills or strengths do I have? And I was fortunate at that point to be introduced to, I call them mentors, although they're not people I know in person. They're people that I found online or via books or podcasts and began to follow and to see what they were doing. And this influenced my thought process so much. So if I was going to give you, if you're wanting to make a change in your life, if I was going to give you a tip, I think number one would be to find some people that you admire, that you look up to, that you feel like could be role models that are doing the thing you want to do in the way that you would like to do it, and follow them and learn whatever you can from them. So I did this, and there were several people, and I'll put some links in the comments below, but Amy Porterfield was one who was certainly instrumental in just framing my thinking in some of the questions that I asked and ways that I thought about what I had to bring to an employment table. So I started cataloging, and I was pretty deliberate about this. And I don't know that I wrote it down, but it was very much a distinct thought process, cataloging what strengths or skills or unique abilities do I have that I could do something with? If I can't go get a 9-to-5 job, and it just was not feasible, right? In that economic climate, in that state of mind that we were all in, and just with so many people looking for jobs and with my lack of qualifications, that was not feasible. What else do I have to bring to the table? Well, one of them was I have this hobby. I have this passion. I love machine quilting. And I have spent 15 years at that point teaching my children, teaching 4 children with different learning styles, right? Teaching them the 3 R's and a few other things, teaching them at home. So actually, though I had not thought of myself as a teacher, and though I don't have any letters after my name or a diploma to hang on the wall, yet I have a lot of experience teaching, showing, telling, right? So that's another skill set that I have. What are some others? One would certainly be a characteristic. My nature is I get things done. I'm a box ticker, right? If something needs doing, I'll get it done. Tick. It's not that I don't ever procrastinate, but by and large, if you set something in front of me that needs doing, I will chew away at that until it is accomplished. So I know that. I have stick-to-itiveness. It's probably my German background. Just get her done. That is a quality that I bring to the table. What else do I have? I'm thinking again about maybe even what my husband and I have together, because this next one is really more him than me, but it's a skill that I have in my back pocket, so to speak. And that is Dave, that's my husband. He is very tech oriented. He's a geek, let's just face it. So he loves things that have to do with uploading, downloading, and creating things online, and using apps and researching apps and tools that can be used in, video creation or those sorts of things. And he loves all that kind of stuff. I don't, but I have him, and I can ask him for help, and he can really be a crutch, if you will, if I want to do something in the digital or online space. So again, remember, we're in the first few months of lockdown in COVID. Everyone's at home, and I'm trying to think now, what can I do with the things that I possess? And let me just back up a little and describe to you, in case you're not a quilter, the typical trajectory, if you will, of someone who's going to get into the quilting industry as a business would be that they learn how to do the thing. And when they get quite proficient at it, they will in some way take that thing on the road, usually in the form of quilt shows, which are held in towns and cities all across North America, or some kind of exhibits or conferences, right? And they'll go into these settings and begin to teach what they know and begin to create a following of students that know them and recognize them. And that's how they'll begin to build an audience. Over time, they might do things such as publish books or patterns and things like that as well. Okay, back to my story now. We're in the middle of lockdown. So though I do have the skill set and the ability to teach, there's nowhere to go with it, right? I cannot physically go anywhere and do any presentations. So the thought, of course, comes to mind, well, is there a way I can do these things online between me and other students at the other end of the screen? And this is probably my number 2 top tip. And this is not original to me. I think I probably first heard it from Dave Ramsey. I won't quote him exactly, but you can look up his words. He has said and written this many times. There's 2 sides to any situation. What looks like a catastrophe, something has fallen apart, on the flip side, there's also opportunity. So I saw that at play. The obvious disaster is job is gone and nobody wants me to come and teach at their quilting facilities or shows, right? Seems quite disastrous. The opportunity on the other side of it is everyone else was in the same boat. And so quilting people who wanted to consume classes, who wanted to learn, who were in fact sitting at home doing their hobbies, were now learning how to attend Zoom classes, how to purchase online on-demand courses and access them and learn through their devices. So the opportunity was there. A lot of the quilting hobbyists that are in that world tend to be 50, 55 and over. These are the people who tend to have the quilting hobby and who tend to be looking for and consuming quilting classes, courses, material, things like that, and even attending quilt shows. And so the opportunity that was created was these same, generally women of that age who last year didn't know how to attend a class online, didn't know how to load up or log into a course on demand. Now we're learning. So the opportunity was, okay, if I can figure out how to teach it and package it, I can present this to them and I can create a job teaching this thing to my now blooming, flourishing audience. There was one other opportunity which was personal to me, but which really came into play here. And that was, I have been all my life a quite introverted, quite shy person. I have never, ever been the one to take center stage, to get out in front, to be the leader. I've never been that person. And when the pandemic hit, I still was not that person. And the idea of going on camera, talking on screen, trying to convey something to people who I couldn't see, right? You're talking to the little red eye of a camera, was super daunting to me. But here's where the opportunity lay. In those first few months of lockdown, everybody was at home, everybody was lonely, everybody was hungry for a little bit of companionship and connection, and everybody and their uncle and aunt was going online, usually live, because everyone was so hungry to see, to hear, to connect. And so I'm seeing these people coming from their homes, from their workspaces, from their, walks, from their, on their gym equipment, whatever they're doing, people that are just turning on that camera, going live and making the connections with, could be poor lighting, could be, maybe they don't talk smoothly, maybe their sound is not great, whatever. I see all of this and I think, you know what? The bar is not very high. I don't have to do a perfect production or creation. I don't even have to do a competent one, frankly. I just need to get out there. People just want to hear someone's voice, see someone's face, and connect. So that is, in fact, what I did. That was my very first step. In April of 2020, I began going live on Instagram, was the first one I chose, and I did it every day for 6 weeks, just for a few minutes, and I would talk about something that I was working on in my quilting studio that day. There was no big point to it. I was not teaching anything in particular. I was literally just out there making a connection with other quilters. And in the meantime, just by frequent exposure, I'm getting used to this idea of looking into the eye of the camera, talking to the people that I know are listening, putting a smile on. Those ever so slowly began to take place in my mind. And I found something remarkable. I actually loved connecting in that way with people. I did not have to pack my bags and travel anywhere, but I could still form this connection. People could still chat via my live connection, and we could still touch base with each other and even get to know each other and become friends. And I found that I absolutely loved that way of connecting. So that was step number one. Just realize something I've never done before, have no idea how to do, which is get on camera and produce live video. I actually can get out there and do it. And furthermore, I could even learn to like this. But now a new problem has arisen. Because I've been at home quilting for hire for a few people in my local city. I've got these ideas now. I'd love to teach how to quilt, but I have no audience. I have no one to speak to. I have not been on a teaching circuit and built some group of people that I know, or have a list of email addresses that I can reach out to and say what I'm doing now, or sell courses to, for goodness sakes, if I get that far, right? I have no audience at all. And I have no, at that point, zero understanding of how to build such a thing. I grew up in the far northern reaches of Canada. So as my childhood had, zero technology in it, like literally we didn't even have a telephone till I was in my mid-teens or running water. So zero technology. And then my, young adult years were spent, again, raising the kids, homeschooling them. So I was never on the cutting edge. I was never even in the late teens, 20 teens, I was not involved in the online space and active there. And so I, not only in my skill set and in my audience level, also in my knowledge base, I was starting flat-footed, zero. So come back now to my first tip that I gave you, which is find some people that you'd love to emulate and watch what they're doing and learn from them. That's what I did at this point to solve this problem of no audience. I started listening to several people, mostly via podcasts, some on YouTube, and learning, okay, what do I need to do if I want to start attracting an audience that wants to know what I have the ability to teach? I need to start building that. So this is not an episode about all of that, so I'm not going to go into detail. Just know that that was the next step I took. I don't have an audience. I don't know how to build one, but I can go and learn how to do those things. And I did, and gradually started building that audience. So the third hurdle that I came to in my new entrepreneurship, right, of teaching the thing that I love to other quilters, I've already alluded to. It was COVID and the fact that we're all at home, and I don't have a means to deliver class material or courses to people in person. I don't have the opportunity to talk to them face to face. I can't go into quilting stores or at quilt shows or any kind of conferences. And so the answer to that for me at that point was to look at creating online materials, whether that would turn out to be, going live on Instagram or social media platforms, or whether that would be YouTube. What I eventually settled on as the best fit for what I wanted to deliver was online, on-demand courses. Probably you're familiar with all of those terms, but just in case you're not, it just means that my course material, my class, lives in a permanent place online, and a student, you as a student, can get access to it at any time with an email and a password. So it's on demand. And the way that I choose to deliver my courses is once you've purchased it, you have access to it for always. That's not always true, but that is for mine. And so it's called on demand because all you have to do is log in and all that material is right there for you. And you can watch it as many times as you want to. You can press rewind, you can press pause, you can speed it up if you want to go through the material more quickly. But an online, on-demand course was the perfect fit. And in fact, looking back from the vantage point of a few years now, I'm so grateful that I was nudged quite firmly into that direction by the circumstances that were surrounding my life at that point, because I don't know that I would have broken out of the typical trajectory that I talked about earlier, that, I develop something, I learn how to do it, then I decide to teach it, and I go on the road and I teach it in person in some way. I don't know if I would have broken out of that rut, and I certainly would not have done it as quickly if I was not forced into it by job loss and by COVID and the circumstances that surrounded us. But because I was pushed into that, that's where I went first, was, all right, how can I create a course? How can I organize my material? How can I create the videos and package it up and offer this to quilters? And so I bet you're hearing a refrain already as I'm talking about problem solution, and that is I keep running up against things that I don't know how to do. And I want to really emphasize this for you because Maybe you need to hear this message today. I have learned that in my 50s, I'm now 57, even in my 50s, I can absolutely learn something new. When I need to know how to do something that is totally unfamiliar to me, there are numerous ways to learn. YouTube University is one, asking my husband is another, finding apps and programs and tutorials that are built into them is another. There's multitudes of ways, but I do not have to be hindered, hampered, limited by not knowing how to do something. I can get out there and learn. And that was such a mindset shift for me. All of my adulthood up until this business had been spent in chiefly doing the things that I already knew how to do, already was competent at. I knew how to take care of babies. I knew how to prepare good meals for my family. I knew how to do laundry and shopping trips and swimming lessons and all the things. I knew how to create friendships and be connected in my community, but those were things I had grown up doing and continued to do as an adult. Until I began my business, I had not developed that part of my brain that said, oh, I need to learn this skill, which is totally unfamiliar to me, and I can do it. And I'll come out the other side knowing something totally new, being able to do something I couldn't do last year, and getting competent at it, and perhaps even actually loving doing it. There are some really great benefits to this method of teaching. One of them is that I am able to teach once and teach to many. So not only am I not limited by room size, so for example, if people were coming to my studio, only perhaps 3 would fit. If I was going into a quilting shop, perhaps 8 would fit. If I was teaching at a quilting conference, maybe 30 would fit in the room, but there are still limitations to how many people you can offer a live and in-person class to. That limitation is lifted when you go online because now each person is getting the material all on their own, and so you can provide it to many, 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 even though you're one. There is no limitation. And another advantage from my point of view is the cost of delivery is very low. So think of if I am going in person to teach at, let's say, quilt shows, and let's limit it to the United States, which is where I live. Still the cost of packing my bags, traveling to another city, accommodations, meals, etc., traveling back, that is significant in order to be able to deliver that class or even series of classes over a period of a couple of days. The cost of doing that via an on-demand course is far, far lower. And so that is a really attractive thing about doing this type of on-demand course. So for me as a seller, it was the perfect fit. I had opportunity to prepare my class materials, to even rehearse them, to record them, and then even edit to get them better and sharper and clearer and no fluff, and get them as polished as I could before I started delivering them. And every student then can get that material and access it at their own time, at their own pace, and in their PJs if they like. So it works out really well. This was definitely a change or a shift in my mindset too. I grew up in an era when you walk into stores, you're used to brick and mortar storefronts, you're used to talking to an individual face to face, you're used to attending things in person. And so the idea then of thinking of having a business where I didn't have a storefront or didn't have inventory or didn't have a physical product was a shift. And there are obviously lower costs in terms of rent, inventory, supplies, staffing, etc. But there are other costs that are incurred that are not in a brick and mortar. So again, it's this shift because now I need perhaps equipment such as cameras or editing software or subscriptions in order to have a platform to deliver the product or accept third-party payments. So there's a lot of intricacies in that. So I, again, just needed to learn the pieces, the gears, the cogs that ran this machine and get them into place. So we've circled back around to hurdle number 4, which for me was there are so many things that I don't know how to do. And again, many of these hurdles I came up, reared their ugly heads in several ways, because I've already talked about not knowing how to do things, starting from an absolute standstill. But in this case, even as I'm creating my course materials, even as I'm creating my videos and getting them ready to launch, there is still so much I don't know about how to deliver that product, how to deliver a customer experience, how to offer service or support. It looks totally different in the online space than it does in a brick and mortar store. So again, I went back to my mantra of find a couple of people that are doing it well and do it like them. There are a few people that I have followed, these 4 or 5 years now, and a few books that I have read that are so remarkable. I've actually created a short list for you, and I've got a link for that in the description below this video, so that if you wish to, you can refer to these books too. Now, know that they are not so much how-to manuals. They're just books that I personally found very inspiring, very encouraging, and very much about being in the right frame of mind to tackle these hurdles that I faced, to figure out, to solve, to know how to go forward. Another tip that I want to offer you that I just think is essential for every person doing a new thing is learn how to stop infocrastinating. Now, I did not coin that term, and I don't know where I first heard it, but it is such a great one. It refers to going out and saying, well, learn how to do something, and you start watching videos, reading books, listening to podcasts, talking to people, watching more videos, reading more books, talking to more people, and that's called infocrastinating. You're not really doing anything. You're learning, and you tell yourself, well, I'm still getting things done. I'm still playing around with this new software, this new camera I've got, or this new email platform that I'm using, whatever the case may be. It's worthwhile. I need to do it. Here's the thing that I've learned. It is far better to learn a little and go out and put boots on it, get it on the road, and then move on to the next thing, than it is to spend endless time learning more and more and more and seeing, oh, there's another way. Oh, there's a better tweak. Oh, there's another little thing I could fix. Oh, I could do this. Oh, I could add that, and never get the thing out there into the world. I learned this, I feel like, with my first course as well. And giving you a little bit of a chronological picture of how things worked. In the COVID year, in that spring of 2020, is when I went online for 6 weeks and started building a presence, if you will, started introducing myself to other quilters so they knew who I was and what I was about. And all that summer and fall, I was started an email list, so capturing people's email addresses, offering them something in exchange, and then having this group of email addresses that I could regularly chat with, send tips to, send information to, send what I was learning to even, and keep in touch and build this following, this audience. And in the fall of 2020, late fall, it was in November, is when I actually rolled out or launched my first course. And I called it Free Motion Quilting Masterclass, and it still exists today. It is actually still my #1 signature course that I sell and support. Now, when I released this, though, if I were doing it again, this is what I would do different. It's a large course. It has about 12 hours of finished video in it, multiple modules, multiple lessons within each module. If I was doing it again, I would have first created something much, much smaller, because I think that first iteration of perhaps anything, I suspect this is true if you're writing a book, for example. If you do a smaller thing first, that first one is all about you learning. It literally is school for you. It's not about the finished product. That was certainly true for me with that course. There were so many things to learn, from, the delivery platform to how to upload it and create thumbnails, and what it looked like when they were playing it, and how payments were processed and how refunds were processed and how I communicated with them after the fact and what support was like, and all kinds of things that surrounded it. And then to the delivery process of, the workshop that introduced it to people, that was my platform for talking about my big course and selling it. learning how to do that, learning how to talk about and promote and create social media posts and all the things that went into delivering that course to people who I thought would be interested in it. That was a massive learning curve. So if I had started with something smaller, I would have put less pressure on myself, right? I would have just thought, okay, I'm just going to try my workshop this way. I'm going to use these terms to sell it. I'm going to try this many emails and this many social media posts. And I would have worked more on the mechanics and learning how to do the process and just get the thing out into the world. Also, it would not have been the volume, the sheer volume of videos, right? And so it would have been easier when I knew a little more about camera angles, knew a little more about editing, to go back and redo it. Because that is in fact what has happened. Fall of 2020, I first issued that course. Spring of 2024, I retaped, re-edited, re-released the whole thing because I had learned so much more by then and I made such a better finished product out of it. So all of that rambling to say, when you're starting, start with something smaller so that there's less pressure on you to perform and to produce a large, finished, perfect product, because that first iteration is more about you learning the process than it is about the thing that you're making. And then in the future, you can go on to make more elaborate, more involved things or whatever it is that you are trying to produce. So this again, I know that I ramble and talk, but so many thoughts are going through my head, so many things that I learned in this process. I started this hurdle with saying, don't infocrastinate, just get the rubber meeting the road. This is all part of that same train of thought. Even if it's a small something, get it finished, get it to an 85% level. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Don't wait for it to be big. Don't try to teach everything. Get it finished, get it out in the world. Then you can start getting feedback, getting some responses to it, learning how it lands, learning perhaps how to sell it. All of those things you can then start learning and you'll get better and better and better. And then if indeed your product repertoire grows, you're prepared for it. But there is a massive learning process in that whole delivery that just takes time. So don't infocrastinate. Don't expect of yourself that you can learn all of that before you ever deliver the goods. Go ahead, get some good made, deliver it, and then start making it better and better and better as you go. So remember that term because it's a fun one, infocrastinate. Don't get caught up in the trap of just learning, learning, learning like a sponge. Start doing. On the heels of not getting caught in the trap of infocrastinating, it's also really beneficial for your mindset, for your thought process about what you're creating, to look back and see how far you've come instead of looking forward and seeing how far you want to go. One of the books in my reading list is The Gap in the Gain by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. That book is, I think, should be required reading for everyone in life in general, but for sure in business. And it's all about the idea of, rather than measuring the gap, how far I am from where my ideal is, rather looking back how far you've come and measuring the gain. And so doing this at many different standpoints. I tried to do it quarterly, honestly, to sit down and take a really considered look at what have I gained, what have I learned, what progress have I made this quarter, but for sure every year. It's just too easy otherwise to berate ourselves because I haven't achieved this big thing that I hold out in front of me as the goal. And often it's the big thing that we see someone else doing, and we put that standard in front of ourselves. And it's like a horizon. That standard keeps moving and moving and moving, and we never get any closer. And then we start to live or get caught up in that feeling of never moving, right? Of never moving forward. So intentionally, regularly, often, sometimes even daily, if you just need a little pep talk mentally, looking at the gain. What have I accomplished today, this week, this month? And measuring that. That is just endlessly encouraging to me because as I look back now over 5 years of entrepreneurship, we're just coming up on 5 years next month, there is an incredible difference in where I am now as compared to where I was then in all kinds of ways. I'll count a few for you. This, by the way, was not in my notes. This is just a free pep talk for you. But some of the ways that I've changed is grasping the idea that I can learn a new hard thing because I've done it over and over and over and over again in this 5-year cycle. And I can look back and I can see a whole fleet of things that I did not know how to do 5 years ago, and I do now. And if I break it down year by year, I can every year or every quarter look back over my shoulder and say, I've learned how to competently do that thing that I did not know how to do. Even as a person, I have changed. And part of that change, it's mental. It's the knowledge that I have mastered things that I didn't think I could master. For example, talking on camera like today, I started out by saying this was not a skill set I ever had in my whole life. I was always the person behind the scenes doing the running, doing the cooking, whatever the case may be. And to now be the person wearing a microphone in front of the camera teaching others was so unimaginable to me. And yet here I am, and I'm comfortable with it, and I enjoy it. I do want to say, though, that even that, it's not magical. It is yet another of those things that I set out to learn, and you can do it too. So that one thing, breaking it down just a little bit, think, for example, of speech. I am naturally a very fast talker. I trip over myself in my words because I can't make my mouth go as quickly as my brain is going most of the time. And so I've always been a trip over my words sort of person. And I have often, because my mouth is not keeping up with my thoughts, I've often used filler words like and like I was thinking about like going there, and then like I decided to go there. So many people that I listen to do that, and I did too. And it's been an intentional, practiced thing to slow down and to not use those filler words and to get my thoughts in order before I open my mouth and let it start running. Now, I'm still a fairly fast talker. If you come back and listen to me 5 years from now, you'll see a difference again, though, as I keep working on that. My point with that is you can do this too. If there's a thing that you need to learn how to do, maybe it's smile on camera. Maybe when you watch yourself on camera, you think, "Ugh, that looks like an unhappy person. I don't feel unhappy. I don't want to look unhappy." Well, you can learn to be smiling while you're talking. Maybe it is your speech patterns like it is for me. Most people do tend to have some type of filler words, and when you listen to yourself, you'll hear them, but you can learn not to use them. You can learn to overcome that habit of falling into them. It may be totally different things in your experience. My whole point being, I'm living proof it can be learned. You can change these habits. You can change the face you present. You can change just your comfortability level in doing things that once were so unfamiliar and seemed so unreachable. And again, I keep saying this, but I'm in my mid-50s now, and this is not an age when people are typically branching out and learning new things. But not only have I done that, but I have found enormous accomplishment and reward and mental strength in doing that. It changes something in me when I set out to conquer something, to learn something, and then I do it. And now I'm capable at one more thing. My confidence grows and forward I go into the next thing. Another favorite book mentioned in the list below, and it's the 4 C's formula by Dan Sullivan. And he talks about that, about the courage to do a new thing and about the commitment to doing it, and then growing the capability of doing a new thing. And then confidence comes into play, and that cycle continues. I have found that to be true. And I want you to be able to experience that too. If indeed you are looking at some sort of pivot, as I did, this is how it's done. And it happens in that same format for everyone. This same mastering of a new technique, of a new skill, breeds confidence, and it does that for everyone. So if you want more confidence, do something hard, master it, figure it out, tackle it. And confidence is just infectious. It just grows and it makes you just want to take on the next thing and do it well. There are so many advantages to creating a business from the ground up that is exactly what you want it to be. But let me share one of them with you, and that is the freedom to choose how I spend my time. So, as we record this, you may or may not have noticed that I'm in a different background, different surroundings than I typically am when I'm recording videos for you. I am neither in my quilting studio nor in my office, which are my two typical places. At this moment, I'm sitting in my sister's quilting studio 1,000 miles from home. So the reason for that is my dad is ill and in hospital, and I want to visit. My grandkids live nearby, and I have siblings and friends here. And so that ability to pack up my apparatus, whatever I need for continuing on with my online production, is remarkable. While it is difficult to show quilting or to do live episodes with you in this format, yet I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to be somewhere else entirely out of my ordinary surroundings and still be able to sit down and record an episode like this for you. It feels like I should be coming to the end of the story because we are getting up to the present now in my business. However, I feel like this is not the end of the story. This is just telling the story so far, the gains so far, and there is still a horizon in front of me, and I don't know entirely what it entails. But I will tell you this, the hurdle, if you will, that I'm facing right now is making some hard decisions in my business because as I've been learning new stuff, I have found a lot of things that I enjoy and am fairly good at, and I'm finding that I'm a bit overwhelmed trying to do all those things. So now I'm needing to make decisions. What things stay? What things get pruned away so that I can do my actual passionate first loves, the things that are most effective, the things that are my unique ability the best. For example, I do have a YouTube channel. You're here right now, you know that. I have the major course that I've been talking about, Free Motion Quilting Masterclass. I have a smaller course, Machine Quilting for Beginners. I have a monthly subscription membership. At different times, I have had a podcast with different seasons. I have 1,000 ideas for other courses. I'd like to start helping other people perhaps grow their craft or their hobby into a business. There's all these ideas, right? And all these things I could do or could say yes to. And I'm needing to prune that down to keep some focus. I want to maintain the awareness that life is about more than entrepreneurship. It's more than financial success. I know that to be true, and I want to live that type of lifestyle. So this is where I'm at now. I am regularly reviewing and assessing what are the things that produce the best return on my investment of money and time? What are the things I love doing the most? And what are the things that I'm going to have to say no to so that I can fully say yes to the thing that really lights me up? Some of you will want to know the brass tacks. How much money can one actually make with a crafty hobby? And I kind of love talking about this, honestly, because I think traditionally it's been a kind of truism that you can't make money as a crafter. We will often say that. It might be about a quilter or a knitter or a seamstress or even a tailor, perhaps, that when you get into artisanal things, you can't do them fast enough to get well reimbursed for your time, and there's really no money in it. And that doesn't mean zero, but there's no living wage in it. The hourly wage is just not enough to be worthwhile as a living. However, when you've heard my story and I've talked about my different hurdles and the different stages in my business, the truth of my story is, though it is founded on crafting and on my hobby, yet I went outside of doing the thing, in other words, quilting for an hourly wage, to teaching others to quilt in order to apply leverage to my knowledge. And that is how I was able to make a living from it. Now, the very first year that I released my first course, Freehand Quilting Masterclass, it was in November of 2020. And so that was just a tiny, tiny year. And I only made about $5,000 that year, which is pretty small. That's not going to keep body and soul together, is it? But by the next year, my courses, my digital product had already far surpassed my actual quilting for hire. My first full year, I made about 65,000 with my courses. The next year, 125. And by full year number 3, I was doing over 250,000 in sales a year, and I have not looked back from that. So that just goes to illustrate, again, this idea of being thoughtful about what is it that I love? What can I do with it that will be leverage, that will apply a lever to it and make it able to support my family? That's what this has done for us. And it is such a blessing. And I so treasure being able to do the thing that I love still, communicate with people that I so enjoy being with about the thing I love, and being able to make a living at it. It just doesn't get any better than that. So I hope this has encouraged you if you are trying to make a pivot in your life too. Whatever your pivot is, you may not be crafty like me, it may be a total other thing. But I hope some of these tips and lessons that I've learned will be super helpful to you. And don't forget to check out the resource books below. Lots and lots of wisdom there.